What's going on, everybody? I'm Patrick from POWLAX, and in this video I'm going to be showing you guys 2 3-3 flip and swing plays that Rutgers used to beat Ohio State this year. So as I first watched these, I was like, man, that looks really complex. But then after I actually broke them down, they're actually quite simple. The key is that you really just have to have all players who can swing the ball quickly, who can execute a flip, and then players who understand the meaning and timing of cuts so that we can overload a 4-man or 5-man rotation. But before we get started, make sure to check out patreon.com/POWLAX, where you can download and print the playbook PDF that accompanies this and over 50 other POWLAX videos by becoming a patron and supporting this channel. The goal for this channel is to put out free, in-depth lacrosse coaching content for coaches and players to access anytime, anywhere. So we're going to move through this video in the following ways. First, we're going to talk about the setup, which is your general 3-3, discuss a little bit about the kind of man-down defense that we want to use this against. Then we're going to outline both plays in kind of a skeleton set, just to kind of show you what it actually is and what the rotation is and how you're actually going to teach it to your players. Then we're going to show you exactly how Ohio State played against it and why the first rep of the first play worked really well, what adjustment Ohio State made the second time that they saw it, and then how Rutgers went straight into the second play and scored their second man-up goal using this set of motions. So the first thing that we've got is our setup, and we want to set up in a 3-3, and our 3-3 is these middies here and our attackmen here. Now, it doesn't really matter if these are all middies or these are all attackmen. You may want to put specific players in specific spots because that's how your team will be most effective, but this is how I like to show it just because it makes it simple for me and I can always remember exactly where each player is. Now, just a quick caveat that I have to say is just make sure that your 3-3 is not 3 players straight and 3 players straight, because you get rid of a lot of the through looks in your just simple 3-3, and a bunch of the angles start to get a lot worse if you have just 3 players straight. You really can't attack these corners, and you don't have a bunch of the skip passes, so make sure that your 3-3 is not 3 straight, 3 straight. Now, when we're running these plays, we really want to make sure that the defense is in a 4-man or a 5-man rotation, because what we're going to essentially do with these plays, it's not really an overload because the players are going to get back into this 3-3 set, but what we want to do is we want to use our perimeter players to overwhelm the rotation. So if we have a guy inside, we're basically limited to 4 players on the perimeter of the field, whether they rotate in and out of the crease or not, and we want to move the ball extremely quickly so that our ball movement beats their rotation. All right, so now we're going to get into the first play, and the first thing that we have to talk about is which way we're going to swing the ball to set the play up. And so for the first play, we're going to use a counterclockwise swing, and the way I determine counterclockwise and clockwise is the fact that I always look at the offensive side of the field or the defensive side of the field like this. And I do that because the goalie's view is how we want to talk about the field regardless. So I think this is the righty alley, this is the lefty alley. X is always behind, obviously, but so I always go from the goalie view even when I'm talking to our offensive players. And so with our counterclockwise swing, we're going to be moving this way. And our main objective is just to swing the ball quickly. We don't need to press in and start coming into the middle of the field. We really just want to make sure that the ball swings quickly. We don't want to have any sticks in any passing lanes, and so that's the main thing as we swing the ball. So now that the ball has hit M3, now we're going to execute our first part, which is our flip. So M3 is going to come to the middle of the field. M2 is going to come to the outside. M3 is going to toss the ball up for M2 to catch it. And now M2 is going to be on this side, M3 will be on that side. Now the other action that we're going to have as they're doing this is we're going to have a 3-man rotation with these 3 players. So A3, as the flip is going, is actually going to get up to this wing. A1 is going to kind of come to X, but he's still going to be on this left side. A2 is going to float out the backside to replace A3, and M2 is going to cut the middle. And so essentially, as M2 catches the ball, he's going to move it quickly to A3, quickly to A1, quickly to M1, and now we're looking for shooters of M3 stepping in, and then possibly if the rotation covers M3, it'll then hit A3. But we'll show you that in a bit against an actual defense. Now, if none of this works and A3 catches the ball but doesn't have a shot, we're going to move right into our second play. So A3 catches the ball. He's now going to swing it in a clockwise manner up to M1. Once M1 catches the ball, now we're going to have a flip, an exchange, and a cut the middle. These two are actually going to be at the same time, and they're going to work together. So The first thing we're going to have is these two are going to exchange, and the big thing is that he needs to cut, A3 needs to cut as this flip is happening. So M1 is going to carry towards M3. M3 is going to accept the flip. As that's happening, we're going to do kind of a similar thing where A1 is going to come up the wing so he can facilitate swinging the ball. A2 is going to come to X to do the exact same thing. And so now we're going to have ball movement where it'll move down to A1, down to A2, and now A2 is going to push the side. And his looks are going to be to this player who floated off the crease and to M1 who is going to cut the middle around whatever defenseman is here. And that's going to put the defenseman in a weird position where he's going to have to either stay with the cutter or he's going to have to step out and play the time and room shooter. And so basically, if we can break down the play, we've got this flip, then we've got an exchange, and then we have a cut the middle. So now we're starting completely over with our first play. Our defense is in, and we're going to show how the defense and Ohio State's 5-man rotation would move as we're swinging the ball. So just a quick refresher, the keys to a 5-man rotation are we're going to have a guy on ball. His job is just to play the ball. We got a left and a right. Their job is to play those players and be in skip lanes. Then we have 2 players backside who are playing 3 who will rotate to the next players. So as the ball moves from M3 to M2, the LSM will move up to play M2, D3 will move in, and D1 will come upfield. As the ball moves to M1, D1 will now have to move to play. D2 is going to have to get out to be the left now. DM1 will get in. The ball moves to A1. D2 comes all the way out to play him. D3 is now going to have to get down the side. The LSM is going to have to get down now. The ball will then move to A3. Now D3 comes all the way out to play him. The LSM ends up coming through. Ball hits up to M3. The LSM steps out to play. D3 kind of comes in. D2 is obviously going to now come into the backside. But so you can see that all of the defensemen are rotating. That's the main thing. That's how we're going to beat them with this play. So now, the player that we are going to isolate is the LSM. He is by the flip. He's the player who we are going to get with our 3-man rotation plus our flip. Then everybody else will be who we attack if the rotation actually works. So M3 will move towards M2 and they will execute their flip. And now as this happens, we're getting A3 up the side, A1 is coming to X. Now, as they did this, the way that Ohio State played it, and I don't know if this is what they were told. Usually I like to have my adjacent players, if any of these players come through, I like to have them stay, but because these 2 players came together, the LSM just passed off and then took M2. So the LSM is going to stay here. Now, as the ball moved to A3, now D3 has to come up the side. Now, once the ball moves again, D2 has to get out to X and play the ball with A2. Now he's going to push this way. Now as this is happening, remember, as he pushes this way, A2 is going to come out. And this is going to drag DM1 out with him just a little bit. And we'll see as they adjust how they fixed this when Rutgers didn't score using this play. Now, as this is happening, we're getting our 3-man rotation, so M2 comes through, and now he's going to cut over the top of the LSM as the ball moves up to M1. D1 has to come out to play him, and so now the LSM is in this weird little trap space where he has to stay with this cut, or he's going to give up the cutter who is here. So LSM stays with, the ball is moved to M3, M3 takes a shot. Now, in the video, what you're going to see is D3 did a really good job of rotating. He just kind of wasn't fast enough. But the reason that I made this backside shooter A3 the second look rather than M2 on his cut was because as D3 was rotating upfield, I saw how completely wide open A3 was. Now, you could have M2's cut be the first look, and that's totally fine, but I really liked to see this A3 player stepping in here. So, in the example, we get a nice step-down shot from M3, absolutely snipes it, but if D3 can get over quick enough, we're just going to move the ball again to A3. he can take his shot. So let's check it out in real time. We'll talk through the whole thing. So as we begin, Rutgers is just swinging the ball. Notice as they swing the ball that everyone is catching it, getting out of their stick quickly, and the defense is in a 5-man rotation. Now as the ball hits top right, we're going to execute our flip. Now, as the flip takes place, notice the player who's back right has moved up the wing, the player who is back left has moved to X, and the player who is defending the flip is going to stay with the ball, not the man. So once the flip takes place, we've got our first pass, second pass. We're going to pause here again. As we run this slowly, as the ball moves from X to side left, notice that the player on the crease is going to draw his man to the back right side in his part of the 3-man rotation, and the player who originally caught the flip and moved it is now cutting over the top of his defender. That is what is going to free up our shooter up top. He steps in, shoots a nice shot low right, and Rutgers scores. Now, if we reverse it a little bit, you're going to see exactly how wide open our second look could have been. So notice that as he catches the ball, if he had deemed that he didn't want to shoot this and moved it one more, we would absolutely have a second step down. So now that we kind of see the looks in live action, now we're going to move on to what Ohio State did to adjust. So we're going to use this same diagram. I know it's kind of messy, but I think you'll be able to see it, and you'll definitely be able to see it on the actual example. So as Rutgers is running their play, what's going to happen is the LSM, instead of getting caught with this cut, and DM1, instead of getting caught coming back to X, what he's actually going to do is DM1's actually going to stay inside, and he's not going to follow A2 out, which allows him to pick up M2 on his cut, and that allows the LSM to step up to M3 as the pass moves, and then D3, instead of having to rotate, he just comes up and he plays there. So what they did is they basically passed off one of the cutters, which is usually more of a zone concept, so they almost went into a little bit of a zone there, so that they didn't have to rotate more than they needed to. And so if a team is really good at playing zone and passing off cutters, this might not be the best thing to run against it, but for a lot of teams, they're not really going to be able to go in and out of specific rule sets depending on the plays they have. But so in this event, Ohio State did a really good job of shutting down the first play. But so now let's watch the second man-up attempt of the first play from Rutgers, and we'll see exactly how that looked. So we're going to begin this example at the first play flip that Rutgers runs, and we're going to focus more on the defensive side of the ball. So as the players run their flip, we're going to notice that they played it in almost the exact same way. The player who is on the flip is going to play the ball, not the man. Now, as the ball swings, what we want to notice is this player here. Notice that instead of staying with his cut, he's actually going to let him go so that he can play the shooter up top. Another thing we want to notice is that the bottom right defenseman does fall off his man who is trailing to X and actually defends the player who is inside. But the fact that these players passed is how we get to our second play. So now the first play didn't work, and Rutgers is going to move right into their second play. And the first thing that we have is our swinging of the ball. So as we swing the ball, the defensive players will rotate. I'm going to show you that real quick. So D3 plays A3. DM1's got to get down to cover. The LSM's actually going to spider in to make sure that he can cover M2 on the crease, because D2 is going to get out and then D1 is going to get out, and the players are just going to rotate in this manner as they are in. I think for a second they were in a 4-man rotation. They might have just been in a 5, but it looked like a 4 for a second. But either way, once the ball hits M1, now we're going to run our play. So the first thing we have is our flip. M1's going to carry towards M3. M3 is going to come towards M1. They're going to flip the ball in the same way that the other player here stayed with the ball and didn't really, press out, and D3's not staying with M3. Same kind of thing happens here. As that happens, A1 is moving up to the side, A2 is coming in, which is going to draw D2 up and M1 over. Another thing as these players execute their flip is that A3 needs to begin his cut. So once we're here and the flip has taken place, we are now going to swing the ball. As the ball is swinging, we're going to execute our exchange. And so A3 is going to cut hard over the top of the field towards A1 as he catches the ball. It could be a look, but I think it would really just slow the ball down from A1. So let's not make this a look. Let's make sure we keep it there. And as he cuts and we exchange out M2, these two, D3 and the LSM, actually communicate it. The LSM is looking like he's coming out, then he comes right back in. And now we isolate D3 on the exterior of the field as the ball swings. Now, as it swings and A2 catches the ball, he's now going to push the sides. DM1 is now going to get back to the hands, and now we finally have our cut the middle. So after M1 flipped the ball to M3, he is now going to cut over the top of D3, and that is why we isolate D3 against these two players. Now, D3 has a choice he can make. He can stay with the cutter, which is what he does in the video, or he can step out and he can play the shooter. Honestly, if he doesn't stay with the cut, I do think that this pass here is super easy, and that's our first look. But if he does stay with this cut, now we've got a nice little time and room shot for our step down shooter on the righty wing. Now let's watch Rutgers execute against Ohio State. We're going to begin this example with the first play flip, the same on the one that we saw that they defended earlier. Now as the ball is swinging, they do a good job of passing, making sure they step up to the shooters. Now we're into our second play. Now I've got to pause it and mention right here, notice that the back right attackman makes sure that he draws a man. That's because we want to make sure that the 5-man rotation rotates with our passes. If he doesn't draw and they're allowed to not play each player, they won't have to rotate, we won't have an advantage, which is why he ran in at this point. Once he draws a man, he swings the ball to back left, it goes up to side left, and now we get our second flip. Now as the flip is taking place, we want to notice a couple things. First off, the player who is side right, A3, who's going to end up cutting over the top, he has already began his cut as the flip is happening. Another thing is the back left player hasn't come really up the wing too far, but the player who is back right has come 2x to make sure that they can facilitate swinging the ball. Once the flip is executed, the ball goes down. One more pass. We see our exchange cut come through, our crease float off the backside, and now we get a really hard cut with number 4 down, which is going to free up our step down shooter on the wing, who steps in and cranks a nice little shot. So as we run this back, just notice that if this player does not account for the cut, he's got an easy layup, but because he accounts for the cut, we've got a nice little step down. I think Ohio State played this rather well. They just, I don't know what that defenseman's going to do in that situation either. Thanks for taking the time to watch this video. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. Definitely let me know what you thought down in the comment section. Remember, hit that like button and subscribe. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram. And if you want to support the channel and download the playbook PDF for this and over 50 other POWLAX videos, head to patreon.com/POWLAX by clicking this link up in the corner and become a patron. This will be a part of the $3 set plays tier. Have a good one. I'll see you guys in the next video.